This is the perfect Stasis Warlock setup. We're spamming infinite cold snap grenades, freezing everything in our path, and buffing our damage output and resilience. If you're struggling to complete any activity or need a crowd control build that doesn't rely on any weapon exotic, this is the best Stasis Warlock build and exactly what you've been looking for. Let's jump straight into it. For the exotic, we're going to be using the Osmiomancy gloves, and the Osmiomancy gloves are going to give you the exotic perk for Verd Cold Snap. Your cold snap grenades have an additional charge that responds quicker on direct impact. Then it's going to spawn the Seekers, spawn from the cold snap grenades that travels further. Now to sum that up, that means that your cold snap grenades will have 2 charges instead of 1. And once you do freeze a target, it's going to freeze all the other targets in the vicinity and refresh or refund almost all of your grenade. So that means you can refund up to 50% or even 100% of grenade depending on all the enemies it freezes. And the reason for that is the Seeker that spawns from your cold snap grenades travels further than it originally intended to because of this exotic. So we're freezing everything in our path just from using the Osmiomancy gloves. You always want to make sure that instead of turning it into a Bleak Watcher, if you see a crowd of enemies, always throw down your cold snap grenade and it's going to freeze all those enemies in the vicinity. It might take a second or up to 3 seconds for it to start spawning those Seekers and freeze all the other targets, but it will eventually freeze all the surrounding targets. Now, because we're using the Osmiomancy gloves, they only work with the Stasis subclass because the Stasis subclass is the only subclass that gives us access to the cold snap grenade. We're combining that cold snap grenade with the best 2 aspects I personally believe to make the enhance this build. The first aspect would be Bleak Watcher. So instead of just having to throw it on your grenade, you can actually turn your grenade into a turret. This turret has a very long duration, and I love using this turret because it helps you control ads that are difficult to see or ads that are in the very far back of the map. So you're able to have the perfect ad control capability. You're the best crowd control player on your team if you're rocking this build. You're able to freeze targets all the way in the back. You're able to freeze and slow bosses and freeze and slow champions. That means you're able to take care of all 3 champions by just using a Stasis Warlock. And as I said before, this doesn't rely on any weapon exotic, so your weapon choice is completely up to you. But Bleak Watcher gives us that extra kick we need in a crowd control build. Ice Flare builds will make sure that once we shatter a frozen target, it's going to spawn Seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. This is how we're able to freeze up to 10 enemies with just 1 grenade because of the aspect Ice Flare builds. So in my opinion, these 2 aspects are the perfect things you need to make the best crowd control build, and I highly recommend these 2 aspects to run on the Shadebinder Warlock. Now for the fragments are going to enhance our overall build, and this is the best combination of fragments I've personally found that works well in this build. So the first fragment we're using will be Whisper of Change. This is how we're able to buff our resilience while using this subclass. Whisper of Change means while we're near a frozen target or a friendly stasis crystal, we take reduced damage. This is going to buff our resilience or our overall damage reduction anytime we freeze targets, and since we have 2 opportunities to freeze targets via our cold snap grenade, we should always be near frozen targets, so we're always going to have a buff to resilience. The next thing we do have will be Whisper of Rending. Whisper of Rending is going to give us a 40% damage buff to our primary ammo weapon anytime we're shooting at a frozen target. So anytime we freeze a target and we shoot at that target with our primary weapon or primary ammo weapons, that means that we're going to deal an increased 40% more damage. This works very well with Wishender, but as I said before, this build does not require any weapon exotic. So you can use Wishender if you'd like to, but Wishender will not be a requirement for this build, as any primary ammo weapon will do. My favorite weapon used right now is the Fatebringer, so I've been using Fatebringer combined with this Whisper of Rending, and I'm dealing an increased 40% damage to any frozen targets. The next fragment we do have is Whisper of Shards. Whisper of Shards mean that anytime we shatter a stasis crystal, we're temporarily going to boost our grenade recharge rate. But the main key benefit I'm getting from this fragment is the 10 resilience, so we can get 100 resilience in this build. That's the main benefit. But once you shatter a stasis crystal, it's going to temporarily boost our grenade recharge rate. So anytime we shatter any stasis crystals, we're boosting our grenade recharge rate, and we get an additional 10 plus resilience. And the last thing we have, which I believe is a mandatory if you decide to swap out any other fragments, this fragment I do not believe you should swap out, will be Whisper of Durance. With Whisper of Durance, the slow that we apply to our targets lasts longer. So that means either from our Bleak Watcher or our cold snap grenade, once we freeze and slow a target, it's going to have a longer duration. This is very important once you start going against unstoppable champions or anti-barrier champions, since freezing anti-barrier champions stops them from putting up their anti-barrier shield. This is how we're able to get all 3 champions taken care of by just using this one subclass. And that's it for the build. For this build, we're going to be building into 100 resilience and 100 discipline. We need 100 resilience so we're taking a lot of damage, and we're able to survive a lot of difficult content once you do have 100 resilience. And the second thing we want is 100 discipline. We need to spam our cold snap grenade over and over and over again. And with 100 discipline, you gain a 1 minute and 16 minute cooldown for your cold snap grenade, but you're easily getting back your cold snap grenades within 5 to 10 seconds if you're spamming it correctly. But those are the 2 main stats you want to build into: 100 resilience and 100 discipline. As for my armor mods, all my armor mods will be inside of the dim link via the description. So if you want to see what armor mods I am rocking in this build, check the dim link in the description. I'm not going to go over it because all my armor mods just enhance this build, and I'm running very standard armor mods on all my pieces of armor. So if you'd like to see what I'm rocking, check the dim link. As I said before, this is the perfect crowd control build, and I will be taking you to the Master Coda raid. And if you guys liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.